here, I want to just reach out and say, hey, make sure, want you guys to know that I'm doing good. I hope all you guys are great and your families are fine. Everybody's staying safe. I miss you guys, believe it or not. I wish we were in school to do all this stuff and read these things, but you know, such is the case that we're not. So what I'm going to do is throughout the course of this book about this book Night by Elie Wiesel, which you read with Dawn, I'm going to start doing a lot of these things and teaching via videos and things like that, so you're more engaged with the text, and I can kind of and teach you these things and kind of make it a little more meaningful to you and make you understand a little bit better. So in order to understand what's going on in Night, we kind of have to go back and talk about some of the historical things. And so, I want to keep these short. I don't want to make them, half an hour long, but you guys know how I am, so we'll see. So, what we're going to look at, there's a timeline of this whole thing in kind of a photo gallery that leads up to Night, and it involves Hitler and the Holocaust. So you kind of have to be a little mature about these things and kind of look back on them with some perspective. We'll talk about some of this as we go. So the first thing, in order to, and we discussed this with Animal Farm, we talked about propaganda. So propaganda is, at least in terms of the Holocaust, used as a dehumanization technique. So what does that mean? It's meant to make somebody feel less than they are. So it was the spreading of information or rumor for the specific purpose of helping or injuring an institution, cause, person, or group of people. So it's specifically meant to harm a group of people and make them feel as if they're below others. So some examples that you see below involve false negative images of Jews. These would be things that were shown to the public. So there were films and advertisements and things that would have been seen in public, and then it kind of leads to people in the general populace believing those things. Okay, so they were casual, but then it stirred up a lot of problems between people. So here's an example. So it portrays the Jew as an inciter of war, a prolonger of war. So they start everything that's wrong, they keep the war going. All right, here's another one. So this talks about the eternal Jew. So it compares Jews to rats. It's also dehumanizing. If you look at the pictures, they're not very flattering. It just makes them out to be something that they're not. Okay, so ultimately, what are they looking for? The Nazis. They're looking for a scapegoat, somebody to blame everything on. All right. So that the old Jewish ritual of scapegoating would be this, literally. A goat would represent the sins of a nation. After a confession ceremony, the priest lets the goat get away to carry people's sins away. So off they go. So they're looking at somebody to blame, an easy target. That would be the Jewish people for the Nazis. But this is an old ritual that would have been used for thousands of years, meant to blame someone or something. Now, 1933, it is a pivotal year. So the Nazi Party takes over in Germany. Hitler becomes the prime minister of Germany. And so right when that happens, Nazis begin to suspend civil liberties for all people. So what does that mean? Freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, all those things that we're able to do without any penalty, then they were suspended by the Nazis. Okay, and so also in that year was the construction of the first concentration camp, and 200 communists are sent there. Now, books, contrary to Nazi belief, are burned. So they would take certain books that people would want to read, things like that, to gain information, and they got rid of them. We saw that in Animal Farm as well. So when the animals wanted to seek out knowledge, the leaders took away their books, took away their source of knowledge. Okay, so here's some other pictures. The Nazis have taken power. Here's the burning of books to get rid of them, kind of suppress learning and suppress freedom of information. Okay? So 2 years later, 3 years later, so 35, 36, not that long ago, Jews are denied citizenship and basic rights in Nazi Germany. So you are no longer a citizen. You no longer have the basic rights that most people would enjoy. And the undesirables of that group are then sent to concentration camps. So while all of this is going on, all this bad stuff, the Olympic Games are going to be held in Germany in 1936. So the Olympic Games, and we're going to miss out on them this year, are usually meant to be kind of a moment where the world comes together. People celebrate athletics, and they're these great athletes who do awesome things. However, and so they did that in 36 in Germany, but behind all of that was this, rise of the Nazi Party and the concentration camps and these denials of rights for Jews. So when the Olympics take place, those signs, anything with the Jews, so things like this and like this, were banned or were taken away. Okay, they were removed. So the public perception outside of Nazi Germany and some neighboring countries, oh, okay, everything is going fine. All right. So here's some more pictures going on here. Treatment of Jews, obviously not very good. Okay. Flash forward 3 years later, 1939 is the beginning of World War II. All right. We, as the United States, didn't come in until 1941. So it was going on for 2 years prior to the time in which we came in. So Germany, to start the war, invades Poland, and World War II begins. Hitler then orders the murder of mentally and physically disabled people. So along with the Jews and some other groups of people, communists and Catholics and homosexuals and things like that, they're sent to the camps. All right. And so Hitler orders the murder of also those who have some sort of disability, mentally or physically. Jews in Poland, so Germany invaded Poland, they took them over, are ordered to relocate to certain areas called ghettos, and wear armbands or yellow stars on their shirts and jackets and things like that to identify them as being Jewish. Okay, so here's a man, you can kind of, it's hard to see, but it's black and white. Here's the Star of David on his jacket to ID him as being a Jew. Okay, now that's kind of the public things. The things that were more in private and the things that were more geared toward the concentration camps were started by this guy, Dr. Joseph Mengele, who is known as the Angel of Death. So he's a very intelligent man. He was popular in the town he grew up in. He was wounded in the war in 42, and so he offered to go to the camps and he'll work from there. So he spent 21 months at Auschwitz, which is the most infamous of the concentration camps, and he was the chief provider of the gas chamber. So he kind of came up with this idea and utilized this the most. And so he, in his time there, or in one of the instances, he gassed 750 women in one day when their block had lice. So he killed them all. Okay. Now, what he did also was these physiological studies on people's body. Okay. So when people would die, he would dissect their body after he killed them. And so he did a lot of studies with twins and different groups of people to see exactly what those different physical similarities or differences were. So he did physical and psychological experiments on twins. Now, he was unsure. So he was unsure what the purpose was or what he wanted to find in any of these things. He was just basically butchering people for the purpose of doing it to try and find out something. Now, all of his notes and records of doing this were then destroyed. And so he escaped Auschwitz after the war and avoided prosecution afterwards, moved from country to country for 35 years, was never captured or prosecuted for his vast heinous crimes, and he died of drowning in the ocean due to a sudden stroke. Oh, poor him. Okay, so he was one of them who was able to escape any sort of prosecution after World War II for the things that he did wrong. Okay, and again, these are hard to look at, but this is the truth of the matter. Okay, let's go back. So I talked about in Poland, after Germany, Nazi Germany took them over, they began deporting German Jews to Poland. So they kind of sent them out of Germany over to Poland, and Jews were forced into ghettos, like I talked about. Okay, so here they are, it's kind of sections of a city blocked off specifically for Jewish people. All right, here's an aerial view of them, which was set up on the grounds of a sugar factory. Obviously doesn't look like a very nice place to live. It's not. It's terrible. So you'd have a number of families living in the same building, all right, sharing the same facilities, working together, but their conditions are awful. All right. So after the construction of the camps, there was kind of what's known as the final solution, that was devised. Okay. So the plan devised at the end of 1941 was to speed up the killing of Jews and undesirables, using the gas chambers and other methods to kill them. And so selection was a term used when the SS, which is like the Nazi military police, forced prisoners to line up for inspections and would decide which ones would live, which prisoners would live, and which would die. Okay, so as you made your way to the camp, you would be inspected. Some would be determined that, okay, you'll live, others would die. Okay. Now, if you look at, let's get a rundown of the camps here. So Theresienstadt was the model concentration camp used to deceive the visiting International Red Cross. So it was kind of, they'd send everybody there. Yeah, this is what we're doing here. Nothing else to see. Dachau was a concentration camp used as a model for the death camp. Auschwitz was the largest death camp. It was located in Poland. Ended up including Auschwitz I and II, which is Birkenau, and Auschwitz III, which was Buna Monowitz. Okay. Now, this is Auschwitz after liberation. So this is kind of what it would look like. So after everybody was gone, this is what is left. This is still what's there today. All right. So let's look at Dachau and see what they have to, what would go on there. So as mentioned earlier, Jews throughout Europe were forced into ghettos. Mobile killing units were established. And then the first death camp began operations in Poland later on that year, December 8th, 1941. Germany declared war on the United States, just as the U.S. declared war on them after Pearl Harbor. So the moniker kind of above the camp, this is Auschwitz, I believe, is Arbeit macht frei. That means work makes you free. Work makes one free. That's, obviously kind of a insidious thing to have on there, because yes, they're doing a lot of, work. They're working, a lot of them, to their death, and so they're not going to be free. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, 1942, the final solution is presented. 5 more camps were in operation. About 20 to 25% of Jews that would die had already perished, and so the ghettos were being emptied by people going to the camps. Now, the fences around the camp at Auschwitz, so there's the estimate of how many people were exterminated just there. The rows of chimneys atop the crematorium where bodies were burned. So this is where people would have went in the gas chamber. Okay. Here's this is Poland, and where different things are within. Well, there's different countries here. So there's like Lithuania and Belarus and Russia, where different things are. Okay. Here's another image of the camp. 1943. So between 2 years before the war ends. So about 80 to 85% of Jews that would die have already died. So there's a huge increase just in 1 year. Baby graves and mass graves are used to consume the mass amounts of bodies. So if you remember from the last, there's a huge pile. Now we're going to fit in one thing. So it's just a mass, turn into a mass grave. Here's an example. Now, with the author, so Elie Wiesel and his family are deported to Auschwitz. So he goes to the concentration camp. This is him in the camp. This is how they would have to live in there. I mean, look, these guys, some of these guys, I mean, they don't even look human. It was the way that they were treated. Okay, these are their pillows. It's like a bowl and a shirt. That's their pillow. Okay. Last year of the war, so the Nazis begin to evacuate the camps because the U.S. forces are coming. They liberated prisoners at Buchenwald. World War II ended in Europe with Hitler's defeat in April of 45. Okay, so about 1/3 of all the Jews in the world had been murdered. The survivors are homeless. They have nowhere to go. All right. So these are survivors of one of the camps in Austria that was liberated by the U.S. Army. This is what they found when they got there. And so that all led to Elie Wiesel writing this novel. So he reflects mostly on his state of mind during the war, during his time in the concentration camp. So it's narrated by Elie, who is a Jewish teenager. He grew up in Hungary, but was obviously moved to one of the camps. So in spring of 44, the Nazis occupied Hungary. First, he was put into a ghetto and then transported to Auschwitz. So you want to look for changes in a number of things. So his personality, okay? So he finds himself in this situation. He starts one way as a child, and as things get worse for him, his personality is going to change. That's natural. Look for his changes. Religion. So he might be a big believer in the beginning, but as time goes on, he gets into the camps. He's kind of wondering, where is God? Where is this guy that's supposed to help us? Okay, and then socially. So you need to look for those changes as how things go throughout the book. Okay, so that's the end of this presentation. Make sure you're looking at the assignment for the things that you have to do for today.